Welcome back to the Ferrari 914 build. Here we are, a 914 on jack stands. There's something you never see. That's an inside joke for all 914 owners. Anyway, so since last time, I've just been demolishing the sheet metal, the factory sheet metal in the engine compartment and trunk area. And now, as you can see, there is no trunk area. So the floor of the trunk, the transmission crossbar, transmission mount crossbar, trunk wall, the engine tray that used to go around the engine bay and hold the rubber seal to keep the hot air on the bottom of the engine from getting up to the air intake that the air-cooled motors use to cool themselves. That seal, the channel that holds that seal, anyway, that's all gone. And it gives you a pretty good view of what are called, the longitudinals, these big box sections that run from the rear suspension console all the way up to the A-pillar and serve as the main chassis, if you will, of the 914. Now, this car has been modified. It was modified before it came here. These bars to support the inner suspension console are braces up to a plated firewall, and also the longitudinal on the inside has been plated, pretty nicely done too, already. And this triangulated box is also non-factory. These other areas that you see, these pieces that have been cut out, that was the previous owner's plan, was to put a 911 six-cylinder 911 engine in, and this was one of the optional front engine mounts setups. And those are obviously not needed in this application, and we're in the way of some of the Ferrari ancillary components. That side ran into the alternator, so that had to go. But anyway, you get an interesting look at some of the box sheet metal construction they used in this chassis. It's pretty cool. Anyway, that's all going to come out and get trimmed. But the most salient thing is I landed on a design for the rear transmission mount. And the reason that all this stuff came out, I was planning on using the factory transmission mount crossbar, but it just wasn't going to work. I tried a couple different designs and none of them really played well with that crossbar. It would have been a compromise, and I can always add sort of my own custom trunk floor and front wall if I so desire a trunk. Anyway, so the key here is this transmission mount needs to be grabbed and supported. And what's going to happen is there will be two crossbars, one approximately here and one approximately here. And that's not why this came out. Again, this is the base, if you will, where the landing zone of the factory 914 transmission cross member. And what ends up happening when you open this all up, and I've trimmed this I'll show you why in a second, but I trimmed this open. But there's a nice box structure here. But since I'm going to land a bar there, it's required, kind of like with roll bar construction, you put what's called a spreader plate over your sheet metal areas anywhere you're landing a tube to distribute that load and provide punch through protection and all that kind of great stuff. And here's the one that I've fitted on this side. You can see what's going on. Trim to shape, holes for the plug weld. It has to be bent, and I got a nice bend. I got a really nice fit. The 90 coming out here, this will be seam welded. These will be plug welded. There'll be some seam welds here. And then this entire area will be skinned with yet another spreader plate that'll get spotted on, plug welded on in a number of places. So in all, the old no kill like overkill applies. So this area will be the spreader plate for this low crossbar. And then this section up here will get a spreader plate, and the upper crossbar lives about here-ish. So in all, a nice solid structure on both sides. So hopefully in the next day or so, we'll be adding these in permanently and kind of going in the other direction, the direction of, first steps are take things out and then we get to put them back in. And so that's always exciting. And it's going really well. I'm super excited about this build. Happy with what we're finding as we go. And it's a real challenge to understand how this is all going to fit. This thing is quite a contraption, and it's tight in that car in certain places. The exhaust in particular is going to be super challenging because it's wide, and if you can see here, this is an interference point for where the factory headers simply aren't going to go. And I suspect that aftermarket headers won't work either. So we may end up buying a set of aftermarket headers and slicing and dicing them, repositioning a couple things so that they can fit, or start from scratch, which is, you know, would be cool, but a bunch of work, and we'll see. So we'll just see. That's the fun of these builds, is noodling along, noodling out the answers as you go. But yeah, so far so good. And a little bit more deconstruction to get rid of some of the remnants, and then, you know, a bunch of plate design. You know, this is going to get plated from this surface back down to here, a nice big box added, so this whole rear suspension console will get tied even more strongly to the longitudinal. Yeah, so this is sort of the boring part, because we're doing like required work. It's all going to be sort of invisible when the build is done, but we'll provide a great base for all the cool stuff to come. So a bunch of stuff's gone on since we last spoke, but most of it's pretty boring and messy. And so let's take a look at what that is. So as you know, the trunk floor was all cut out, and that's all got, well, almost all of it. There's still some remnants back in here that are going to get trimmed out. But most importantly is these spreader plates have been added. And these spreader plates have been added after removing the factory crossbar. So we've got places to land chassis support, and in this case, what we want to work on is the transmission hanger mount. So what we're up to here is I'll call it a main crossbar that's going to live like that, and that's a simple matter of measuring and cutting and getting a nice fit, and that was easy enough. But now comes the fun part, and the style points. Rather than just have another straight bar going across here, and that would be just too easy. What we're going to do is we're going to use the roll bender, and we're going to create a curved tube, continuously curved, that's going to start about in this area, curve up, and then back down over here. Why? Because arches are actually stronger, because as you have weight pulling this way, it's actually trying to spread, you know, pull down and spread the arch. Think about, you know, how you see the old Roman aqueducts or doorway arches. It's a very, very strong shape. So we get both some extra strength, and we have some cool look. But then there's going to be something even super cooler, but I'm going to wait to show you what that's going to be. Anyway, so let's look at the roll bender. Roll bender is, if you haven't seen one of these before, it's 3 rollers, you know, 2 fixed, and then 1 that's hydraulically controlled. And as you jack this thing down, it starts to bend the tube. And as that force is being applied, you roll the tube through there, and it puts that same even curve into the bar. Now you can see there's a couple of different positions where these outer fixed rollers can go. And that means, you know, out here you have more leverage in the bend, but you also eat up a bunch more material because you're going to have a flat between here and where that main thrust roller is pushing. It's not super thin wall or super thick wall tubing. It's 0.95 1.5 chrome moly DOM. So really, really wonderful material. But anyway, let's go ahead and roll this bend. And by the way, I could take fancy measurements. I could try to do all that stuff, but I like winging it. So I kind of use this thing. I use my magical Kirby template tool to get a basic shape, and then I can check the curve of the tube with this. So here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to crank this down. Position the tube where I want it, so I'm using the least amount of material as possible. And go until it hits, and then put a little bit of pressure into it. And again, we just roll away. This isn't a one and done kind of a thing. This is a multiple time kind of thing. And you got to pay attention that you don't knock or lose the material off the other end. And then once that's rolled, we're going to give it another squeeze. Roll back the other way. And this is a great workout too, by the way. If you're looking for core, shoulders, arms, this is here. This is it. All right, and you can see, maybe you can't see from there, but ooh, you will in a second. We're getting a curve. We don't need much, but we do want some. And then I can use my curvy template tool to check, and you can see I got a ways to go. So let's keep going. And if you don't have a roll bender, and you absolutely positively have to have a roll bent tube, many times your local metal shop or metal steel fabrication shop can roll bend stuff. I can do up to about 2 inches, but boy, that's a workout. Obviously depending on the wall thickness. But there are some times where I do yard art projects where I might need, you know, to roll bend some 3-inch tube or something like that. And I can't do that in my shop with this little manual thing. By the way, this is from SWAG Offroad. Super duper awesome tools. I use their roll bender and their dimple dies. If SWAG Offroad makes it and you need it, just buy it from them. They make great stuff. No, they're not a sponsor, nor have I asked them to be. I just love their tools. And again, you're better off doing this a little bit at a time because you can't really unbend these. And you can see we're getting there. And sometimes I'll cheat a little bit. And make sure you go the right way. Whoops, almost went the wrong way there. I'll cheat a little bit like I'm about to do right now. I'm just gonna go one more pass at this pressure because it does add a teeny bit each time you go through, even if you've already gone through the pass. Okay, so that's got a decent curve in it. By the way, if you're gonna release the jack, make sure you understand where this handle is because it'll swing out of the way as soon as the pressure is released. The other thing it'll do is it'll launch this thing upwards if you're not careful, or it can. So I'm gonna put this back in the middle-ish, put the handle all the way down, boop, release the pressure, and then I'm gonna extract this tube. Why don't you come over here with me? Pardon the mess, by the way. I just feel like a mad scientist sometimes. Yeah, see, it doesn't really fit in the chassis at this point. And that's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. I just gotta kind of eyeball if I like how much the drop's gonna be. And what I really wanna do, by the way, is have the bottom of this tube sitting right about here, but then as it curves down, I want it to land below this ledge. So that's what my curvy template tool is doing. I'm gonna put you back over here. Hopefully in the right place. Yep, it's gonna need more. For sure. I should trust my measurements. Now, and what I do here is I just use this as the lever to lever the top roller back up. And crank back the pressure. You also want to be careful that you don't start putting pressure on things until, you know, real pressure anyway, until you're back kind of to where you want to start. Because you could put the wrong kind of a bend in the wrong place. So be careful when you're doing that. All right. And that's that. Nice thing about making this up as you go along is, by the way, I did pay attention to getting this clocked correctly because otherwise you can make a tube that goes kind of the wrong shape. I got a ways to go. And you have to have enough length so that your waist, you can see as it comes out, there's that straight section between the first roller, fixed roller, and the pressure point roller. So you got to throw away at least that much in order to get a curve all the way, assuming you want a curve all the way. And when it gets close, I like to check pretty regularly. Getting there. It's also like 90 degrees here today at the Red Barn. Not as bad as it was this week. Got up to be like 110. And I can still come out here and do work, but boy, oh boy, anything physical like this, it would have been a real workout. Almost. Almost. Getting there. A couple more times probably. Right towards the end, I like to check every time. Because why not? Takes 2 seconds and it saves. Now, as I said, I don't have to be exactly that curve. I just want to be, I need to be close to it, because I can change the angle of this tube. I can play around with this location. Yeah. Oh, almost. There's a little bit of art to this. Not so much, well, there's science to it too. There's actually a digital readout capability on here. So if you're trying to do repeat bends and get the exact result, you can actually count your pumps or your distance as this moves. So you can duplicate your bends. I don't need to do that, so I don't do that very often. I'm going to say we are nearly there. Oh, got like a fat eighth in there still. Let's just come back on that same pressure and check it. Almost. What you don't want to do is get enthusiastic and say, oh, if I just go harder than usual, I'll be done. Each of these passes takes what? 15 seconds? 20 seconds? It's not worth rushing. Oh, I think we're there. I had to set this manually, by the way, because I didn't try to make a template or anything. So what you might have just caught me doing, let me just bring it back through this side. So these things just adjust and allow you to shape the bend. And so now, maybe you can't see it from there, But boy, oh boy, oh, we are right on. Literally, we are right on. Okay, done. Done, 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 done. Following my own advice, let's go back to the middle-ish. Handle down. Boom. Relaxed. And don't just pull it out and let the thing fall. You know, be nice to your equipment. And whammo. Got ourselves, well, we got ourselves a nice arch. Very cool. Very cool. What do you think? Little curve on the bottom, little straight on the top. Looks different enough that it doesn't look the same as everything else. And since it's an Italian engine, you know there's got to be curves involved. Anyway, there you go. So that's the basic frame. And as I said, there's going to be another couple of goodies to come. So until next time, you guys take care. Bye.